Good morning and welcome to day 2 of the Apprenticeship Diversity and Social Mobility Forum, brought to you by the Bameaa Apprenticeship Alliance. I hope you're all keeping well, and I hope you did get a chance and managed to get out and enjoy the bit of freedom that we have through lockdown easing yesterday. Talking about yesterday, it was a brilliant session we had with 3 great speakers, in Chris Gordon of the Youth Futures Foundation, Louise Timperley of the Co-op, and Sabrina Kumari of Aston University. And I've had a few messages yesterday, and a lot of the discussion seems to have had quite an impact and been quite thought-provoking. We'll try and capture some of these thoughts and use them for our upcoming report in a few weeks' time. For those of you who have asked, yes, the recordings are all going to be put up onto the ADSM Forum website. That's adsmforum.com. And towards the end of the session, I'll give you an update on what the dates are for the summer forum, plus the future of this particular forum. So some exciting stuff to come, hopefully. On to today's session, and before we begin, just a quick reminder to all those who are watching to have all your mics off and your cameras. And on to today's session in particular, just a quick reminder to use the hashtag ADSM Forum and tag us at BAMEAA UK. Just to mention, this forum has received some backing, as I mentioned yesterday, and the first organisation is Mindful Education, who specialise in creating media-rich professional courses and apprenticeships, setting up a new standard in the digital delivery of education. They partner with colleges across the UK, producing award-winning courses in accounting, management, law, HR, which are delivered through online and on-campus learning approach. The second is City and Guilds Foundation, part of the City and Guilds Group, which has specific focus on high-impact social investment, recognition and advocacy programs. Each of these programs, they run as a catalyst to make sure that they make a difference to people, organizations and society, no matter who they are or where they come from, to get the opportunities they need to succeed. And last but by no means least, the Social Mobility Commission, who are a non-departmental public body sponsored by the Cabinet Office. And you may have heard recently they've actually moved into the Cabinet Office recently. So on to today's session. Investing in communities, we really talk about, when we talk about communities, we talk about activities, but we really talk about investments, and particularly when it comes to financial investments. So just following on from our conversation yesterday about the need to invest in diversity and social mobility, it's good to kind of see what the true impact of when money is put into communities and what it actually means. And that's why we're speaking to 2 fantastic leaders who are on ground directly with communities in the UK. The first is Kirk Dawes, QPM, a former Detective Constable of West Midlands Police. Kirk has been at the forefront of minority communities in terms of reform for young people who are very far from the labour market. He has engaged and mediated with some of the Midlands' highest high-profile gangs and was awarded Queen's Police Medal in 2014. More recently, Kirk co-owns the City of Birmingham Rockets Basketball Club, which has been backed by NBA and American basketball legend Hakeem Olajuwon. Joining us along with Kirk is Paul Harper. Paul is the Partnership Manager at the new Leaf CIC, a non-profit organisation supporting individuals from marginalised backgrounds with a strong focus on ex-prisoners and offenders. New Leaf recruits through a values-based approach and are committed to diversity and inclusion. And they've got a fantastic backstory, which we'll come on to shortly. So Kirk and Paul, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity today.
Yes, same here.
Good morning. Good morning. So yeah, I think it's a good point to start with start with Kirk here. So Kirk, one of the things that I personally believe is,
sorry, I was talking.
Can you just have, could I just remind everyone to have the microphones and cameras off, please? Thank you very much. Apart from Kirk and Paul. So Kirk, back onto what we're saying. Kirk, one of the things that I personally believe is that sports is a fantastic vehicle for engaging marginalised groups. And it's sort of a path that sort of led to the club being formed, which I think is a good starting point in terms of learning more about how the club was formed in this city, kind of drawing from your background.
Well, I mean, the club really started in 2003 through our managing director, Robert Palmer. And Rob, quite simply, was a sport development officer for the city council. And what happened was it took him into the community. And the reality of that was that he wanted to start something around children and sport and being involved in the old Birmingham Bullets. He decided to put something together. And we started off with 15 young lads, and the club has developed to today, where we probably have about we have 150 in what we would call our elite program, and then another 650 in what we call our community program. And I'm sorry, something's just come up on my screen. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, so it's a webcam request. I think people want to see your face.
There you go.
Brilliant, brilliant. Right. That's what Kirk looks like. Yeah,
this is me. So Rob started this off and built it over the years. So since 2003. Now at the time really, it was at the time when Birmingham was going through a lot of issues to do with gun and gang crime and the like, and being able to get into the communities, and particularly to young people before they made that journey towards organised crime, was a good thing. And one thing that basketball did, it lent itself, because of the makeup of the sport, and there's a lot of different reasons for that, towards these youngsters. I came on board with the actual club in about 2006-07, and that was largely because of my son. Let me just get this right. Right, I was a copper, I was a police officer, and towards the end of my, well, I was a career detective, but probably the last third of my career, I spent that time involved in homicide investigations, and therefore this was around the time of all the whole gun thing in Birmingham. And then I was at the detective training school teaching senior investigating officers how to investigate homicide. That was a natural thing for me. So when I went to the club, and it was because of my son who wanted to play basketball, trying to make this really short, he wanted to play basketball, I took him down there. I was involved in the game at that stage. I'm involved in professional basketball anyway. I was a coach of professional basketball as well as being a cop. My son went down there to play, and what I saw was a kid that came from leafy old Solihull, was a child who really didn't know the city as such. But I watched the way that he grew and got to know a lot more about diversity, his peers and the like, over in the city of Birmingham, and going to somebody that I thought was really capable in terms of turning, you know, getting kids to get themselves involved with other kids and getting them to understand each other. The consequence of that is that when I watched what Rob did over the next sort of 4 years with my own child, who went on to play basketball in the United States and then come back play professionally here, he's now a Royal Marine. When I saw what he did with them, when he asked me to become involved in the club, I did, and that was around about 2009. The journey from then has been absolutely phenomenal. We've got all these youngsters at the club who have gone on to do such great things, and the one particular group that I do talk about the club, it was the 93 boys, and they were all there at the right time for all this gun and gang stuff. And there were 15 of them. They all went to 15 different schools in Birmingham, and every single one of those boys, because of the support and mentoring sort of program that we attached to the coaching at the club, all 15 boys ended up at university, and they're all in fantastic jobs, from criminal psychologists all the way through to soldiers, police officers, physiotherapists, and a whole host of other careers. And so we know the beauty of the game, and we know what the game actually brings to the city. The one thing about basketball that I will tell you now, I do believe this, and I know it because I've seen it, because I've played a lot of other sports. It's the most diverse sport that I know that engages young people. And it is, and I'm on about boys and girls. If people were to come down and just have a look at even just one of our sessions on Saturday morning, where there are 150 kids from all over the city of Birmingham and beyond, and they're from all different races, faiths, you name it, we've got it at that club. they get to know each other. And one of the things is that following my police career, I won't be very long now, Isa, right, because of the work that I've done with the police in my police career, and I used to sit on the criminal use of firearms group, which was a chief officer led thing, I became a negotiator and mentor and mediator, having been trained in Northern Ireland by those people that you would know from the Good Friday Agreement. And the one thing that I will say is this: having all that experience of my own and seeing what they were doing at the club, it was a natural step for me to become involved. And now, yes, I'm a co-owner of the club, but we have a really, I mean, if you were to look at our website, you will see the sort of board that we have at the club and the sort of work that we're doing with these youngsters. And the one thing I will say is this: from 2003 to 2021, of probably, I mean, this is just a guess, we would have had tens of thousands of kids that have come through the club. We've only ever had 2 of those kids go to prison, and that is a big measure for me. 2 that have actually been to court and 2 that have gone to prison. And the reality is this: is that when they came out, we gave them the opportunity to go again. And indeed, even with coaches that have had previous convictions and the like, we give them an opportunity to change their lifestyle. And that's what the club's all about.
I mean, I think you've kind of touched on it slightly, but you know, you mentioned you work with some of the most disadvantaged or more young people in inner city Birmingham and across the country. But could you just, in short, give a quick insight into some of the profiles of the young people that you engage with, the challenges they face, and particularly when it comes to schools and jobs?
Yeah, we've got children whose home lives are quite difficult. We've got children whose home lives are absolutely brilliant. Bringing them together actually means they get to know each other and know what's possible indeed in their lives. Some of the kids, are from inner city Birmingham. Well, a lot of them are from inner city Birmingham. But really, how can I put it? Our reach is way further than that. We've got youngsters who come from as far as Stafford, and Stoke, all the way, right into the south end of Warwickshire that are actually at the club. We do have, if you look at the website, you'll see we do programs whereby we will get a sponsor that will provide food, for those people that can't afford it for their children. We run camps so that, during school holidays and during the summer, youngsters can attend those camps. So if you like, that's a facility for parents to be able to work as well without having to worry about childcare. We run an international camp, which actually allows us to give kids who would not normally be able to travel the ability to see people from other countries and to work with them around the game of basketball. And to that end, I will say this: we also look at those particularly gifted kids, and it's not just about being able to play the sport. It's more than a game. Because with basketball, education dovetails into it. Because if you want to progress in our sport, you will not go very far without working in school and attaining the qualifications that you need. One of our players, a young lad, Alisson, he's 14 years of age. He's in the United States now. We've got him placed into a school, the Phelps School in Pennsylvania. And Alisson is there for the next 4 years on what they call a full ride. So that's free education in the United States. He is particularly gifted as a basketball player, but the lad really, really works well within school. Very respectful, bright man. And he's on that particular program, and he's going to, well, the cost of the program, I'll tell you now, is like $250,000 US. So we place kids not just there, they're in other parts of the States. And we've got youngsters who've come through the program who've ended up representing Great Britain. And a lot of these youngsters come from inner city areas, impoverished areas, families with issues, and sometimes families with problems, with siblings and the like. But the club, what we tend to do is to bring the whole family into the club.
Wow, that's amazing, and I think it's a nice segue into to speak with Paul, because Paul's got an organisation called New Leaf CIC, and New Leaf has its founders' starting journey is one which shows that every single person, no matter where they come from, you've got a certain amount of potential that you can actually use, create internal and external change. I think, Paul, firstly, welcome, and tell us more about the New Leaf story and how it came about.
Yes, certainly. I mean, you've done a really good job of introducing what we do, but I'll sort of expand on it a little bit more, and then I'll tell you how we came to be. As Issa mentioned, we are prison to employment specialists. We operate predominantly in the West Midlands, and we offer through the gate resettlement support. So for people coming out of the criminal justice system, we offer them support to help them resettle and rehabilitate into the community. And that encompasses a wide range of services. So individuals that come through the door have very individual needs, sometimes quite complex needs. Our sort of primary aim is to try and, I guess, encourage and empower people through education and training that will hopefully lead to employment. And the main reason for that being that individuals within prison cite employment as being the main factor in preventing reoffending, to have those opportunities and to be able to obviously find employment once back in the community is a major factor to help reduce that reoffending. In terms of New Leaf and our client base, quite interesting, we ran our sort of statistics in terms of our active client base, and 42% of our current clients are actually from Black, Asian or minority ethnic backgrounds, which I guess if you look at other sectors, that would be quite high. So that's quite an interesting fact that we've identified ourselves. I guess in terms of how New Leaf came about, New Leaf was formed by our CEO and founder, Mary-Claire O'Brien. Mary-Claire actually served a prison sentence back in 2007, and it was through her own experience of the criminal justice system that she sort of engaged with intensive therapeutic activity while she was in custody. And that led to her actually becoming a peer mentor within prison. So she was helping and supporting others. And then obviously when she was released, that sort of led towards the path that became the formation of New Leaf, where she wanted to use that lived experience and that very personal experience to help others, so others that were in the same situation, and most importantly those that want to change their lives for the better. So as I mentioned, training, education and employment is sort of an important factor of what we do, but then equally another side to what we do is that we want to become the voice for that community. So a lot of the work that we do, a lot of the research that we do, that's fed back into the criminal justice sector, so that we can hopefully help to influence and shape things for the better.
And Paul, I think just one interesting fact is that your founder actually started a degree in prison, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, so it just shows actually that the untapped talent, the untapped potential that's there. I mean, you kind of mentioned, you tapped into actually, but you mentioned you work for all sorts of people from all sorts of backgrounds, and when they enter society, what challenges do they have in getting back into employment, and how has investments or funding from external organizations helped that process, or partnerships that you may have had help that process?
Yeah, it can be really diverse and complex in terms of the challenges that they face. I think there's some things we can relate to what Kirk has already talked about. So things that may have led to individuals or contributed towards individuals entering the criminal justice system. So their sort of socioeconomic background, family structure or lack of family support. There's a number of factors that can influence that, and very often those factors are still present when those individuals come out of the criminal justice system. So I guess in terms of what we do, we're quite unique in terms that we do operate on a lived experience model. So all of our peer support workers have been through the criminal justice system themselves, and we believe that makes us unique compared to other organisations where our members of staff and our volunteers have actually lived that experience themselves. I think what we've particularly noticed over the last 12 months are the other factors that have contributed. So obviously, we're all very aware that COVID has affected employment opportunities in a very negative way, and in particular with the groups that we work with and the community that we support, we knew very early on that as soon as those unemployment statistics began to rise, that meant those groups that were already marginalised or already struggled to compete in the employment market were massively exacerbated and became even bigger challenges. But then I think what we've also seen is a real increase in people who are in situations of crisis. So where our sort of main activity would be focused around education, training, employment, we've had to pivot our services over the last 12 months. So we're doing a lot more crisis support. We're now delivering and providing food parcels to young people that we've never done before. So we've seen a real change in the environment and the challenges that these people face.
And in terms of external investments or external funding, how has it helped? Have you had that process that you went through?
Yeah, I mean, because we are a non-profit, we have always existed on external funding. That is something that we're looking to change long term. But the kind of funding that we've been able to benefit from so far has included things such as providing training and qualifications. So we were heavily involved in the West Midlands Combined Authority Construction Gateway. So that was delivering construction-based qualifications to enable individuals to access the construction sector for employment. I think from that we had about 78% of clients that went on to do further education and training, and about 40% of those went on to employment. So quite successful statistics, but ones that we want to improve on a great deal as an organisation. We've also been able to access funding that's enabled us to adapt during COVID. So previously, the training courses that we offered to our clients were delivered in a class environment. We've been able to access funding that's enabled us to develop a digital platform so that we can provide remote access for people so that they don't lose access to those kind of opportunities. We have also worked closely with HMP Birmingham. So we've been delivering since August of last year what's called a departure lounge, which is where we engage with individuals as soon as they leave custody, and then try and work with them to identify their individual needs. And this can range from anything from individuals not having immediate access to family structures and support. They might need access to housing. They might have no means of identification, which is obviously a massive barrier in terms of accessing benefits or employment. So there's lots and lots of different streams that we're now supporting with, which is thanks to that external funding.
Wow, amazing. And with yourself, Kirk, what is it meant to have the likes of Hakeem and other businesses? Like, I know you've had 2K recently, the EA game team. How has that impacted the organisation? How has it impacted the lives of young people that you work with?
I think right.
It might be worth giving a bit of context.
I'll explain. I'll explain who it is. Right. Right. A lot of you might not know him. Some of you may, if you're into basketball. But Hakeem Olajuwon was how do I explain it? He was the #1 pick in the NBA draft, in the same draft as Michael Jordan. Yeah. So Michael Jordan and Hakeem Olajuwon are, they are more than just buddies. In fact, Michael Jordan says to Hakeem Olajuwon, if you could pick 4 other players with which to play a game against anybody, who would you pick? His first pick is always Hakeem Olajuwon, and Hakeem is known as the Dream. You know, right? He's really 6'11", but on any sort of literature you'll look, they'd say he's 7 foot. Yeah, and because he's so tall, he looks 7'4". He's probably one of the best centers. That's the big guy on any basketball team that's ever played the game of basketball. He's an NBA Hall of Famer. He's a very successful businessman outside of the NBA. So that'll tell you something about his worth. Yeah, and I'll tell you a really funny story quite quickly. When Hakeem came to England, he was said to myself and Rob Palmer that Hakeem Olajuwon is in the country and he wants to see you. We said, yeah, okay. How do you know that? Well, Hakeem went into a firm of solicitors, and it happened that one of our coaches' wives worked in the solicitors. And what happened then was that she saw this big, huge guy there, and she phoned her husband and said, I'm sure a basketball player has walked in. So he said, go and ask him his name. And she went down and asked him his name. So he said Hakeem Olajuwon. She goes up and tells Raj. Raj then says to his wife, no, you're kidding. So he drives all the way across Birmingham to have a look, and it's Hakeem. So when Hakeem phoned Rob and myself, we said, yeah, okay. Right, Hakeem Olajuwon, you've got to be kidding. So we arranged to meet him. I spoke to him on the phone, and I'll tell you what I did. I listened to his voice on the phone, and I thought, Hakeem Olajuwon has been in the United States since he was 17 years of age. So therefore, he's got to have an American accent of some sort. But he sounds as Nigerian as he is. Yeah, right. And so I listened to him. So I had to go to YouTube to listen to his interviews again, albeit I knew who he was. So he sounded like the guy. So we get to the car park at the Greswold pub in Knoll, and there's this huge bloke bending over almost double, trying to find what you do with British car parking machines. And I looked across and I said, Hakeem, and he says, hey, Kirk, and it was the real man. Now, the thing is, it's literally like having, I mean, like if you're into football, it would be like having, who can I say, Lionel Messi, yeah, walk into your club. And what happened was we sat down and at the Greswold, and Hakeem said to us, if there's anything that you could do, yeah, that you wanted to do, a dream or whatever, what would you do? Now, we said at that time, we would like to run an international basketball camp where we invite kids from all over the world. He said, we could do that. Okay. So we went away and we made plans for it, but we needed some money up front to do that. And the money up front, he said that he would provide. But we took that money on the proviso that by the end of the camp, we would give him that money back, because we weren't into Hakeem for his money. And as I go on, you'll know why. We don't have money from him, not cash. We don't. But we had that. We ran the camp. We had kids from as far away, China, a number of countries in Africa, Pakistan, India, United States, Canada, and I could go on and on and on. Kids from all over the world. We had 110 of them at the first camp. We've done it every year since 2015. And the truth of the matter is, they came because of his name. His name has a value to it. And this is the big thing. When we ran the camp, and I've coached on a number of international camps here in Annabelle, and what happens is you'll get a big, name that's supposed to be at the camp, and they will pop in on the very first day, and they'll pop in around the award ceremony on the last day. Hakeem, and for every camp since 2015, comes for that week. He is there at least 8 hours a day, every day, coaching kids. Now, if I was to tell you this, Hakeem coaches LeBron James. He was a coach to Kobe Bryant. And if you saw the place that he lives in, he has this full-size basketball dream court that he has there. So realistically, and they pay him a lot of money to do that, but certainly for the week that we run our international camp, which is in his name, he is here for all of that camp. He's there every Saturday morning. He's there twice during the week, during the evenings with his children. The reason he's here, he's an entrepreneur. He has business interests here, spent 6 months here and 6 months in the United States. He just lives around the corner from where I live. And what happened with Hakeem was this, is that his name brought to us the sort of publicity that has enabled us to attract the funding you're talking about, Issa. And when I say that is that during the pandemic, around about April, May, we were approached by NBA 2K, which is the PlayStation, Xbox game, you know, EA Sports. And they approached us to say, again, if you could do anything with some investment from us, what would you do? So we said, we would refurbish our home facility. It doesn't belong to us, it belongs to the city council. So we had to get a lot of permissions, as you can imagine. And soon we will be unveiling to the rest of the basketball world, because we had a global launch that just told people that 2K were going to help us build this court. And we've managed to put together a facility, the like of which you would only see in the United States. And what it is that we know that's going to attract even more kids. Already, we burst in at the seams. You have to go to schools and all of that, and hire other facilities because of the number of people we have each week. But the reality with it is they came to us because of Hakeem Olajuwon, yeah. Hakeem and the club. The club has got quite a reputation now over the years about what we do. But Hakeem is there, and so the investment from 2K has built a facility, a small-sized facility, arena it will be, where everything is international standard. And so that was another wish that came through. Now, I'm hoping for 3 wishes, yeah? That's the way it goes, I understand, in all these fairy tales. But we've had 2 of them. Hakeem is, as I say, a tremendous guy. Obviously, we utilise him and his name when we want to play kids at various places in terms of the basketball world. But the biggest thing is that the families and the children that are involved in the club see one of the world's greatest players ever. And if you go onto YouTube and put him in, you will see what I mean. And he is as human as all of us. And because of his whole background, and Hakeem is Muslim, but the way that he sees the world like we do, that we're absolutely all equal. That's why he spends time. There's nobody that comes into that sports centre that doesn't have an opportunity to talk, to speak to him, and for him to give advice where he needs to. He stands on the court, and if a kid's having a particular problem with a move, the dream shape, which is his signatory move, Hakeem is there to teach them, whether they are 5, because the kids at our club go from 5 years of age right the way through to 19, but now we've got the men's and women's teams as well. So in essence, when you speak about Hakeem and how he came to us, that's how he came to us. He's very involved in the club from a physical point of view. We don't, the money that we need to run the club, we tend to look for it, like you, Paul, we're a CIC, yeah, and therefore not for profit. So none of the directors that you would see on our website, because they're all big players in business, nobody gets a dividend or anything like that. Everything is paid back into the club and back into the community. And that includes the money from 2K, because it wasn't just about the facility. They gave a sizable amount so that we can continue the outreach programs that
it's important as well. I think just to kind of make a point as well that it's big businesses, it's big organizations. We'll come back onto that in a second, but it's organizations having more of a social investment into organizations like that. I think coming back onto my point about earlier, which is both New Leaf and City, or the Rockets Basketball Club, have an overall mission of transforming the lives of minority communities, and those particularly who are probably furthest away from the labour market. So we've got so many apprenticeship employers, training providers joining in and watching in now, who have a similar mission, but because it falls in line with a mission they have, how could they play a role within an organization like yourselves? And where do you see that being? And I want to start Paul with that.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we've had we've got some relationships that historically have been very successful with employers. So one of our first was Virgin Trains, who are now Avanti West Coast, and they really engaged with us as an organisation. They wanted to sort of open their job applications up to other communities within society, and to ensure that they were being inclusive. But they would get involved at a very hands-on level, so they would actually come out and deliver like workshops and employability sessions with groups of our clients, and that's proven really successful for them. It not only filled immediate vacancies because they were able to kind of identify talent from within those groups, but they were also able to create a talent pool so that when they had future vacancies come up, they had people they could reach out to. And that's sort of one example of something that's worked really well for us. So we always try and encourage, where possible, for organisations to try and engage with organisations such as ourselves, to see how you can get involved and what opportunities there are. I think more generally, employers need to, I guess, consider their own processes, so their recruitment processes, how they go out to attract people, and also looking at if there are ways that they're perhaps unintentionally putting off other people. We all know what the jobs market can be like when you see those job descriptions with a great long list of essential requirements that actually are more of a wish list than essential needs. And I think particularly when we're looking at young groups of people who might lack experience, that's where that sort of lack of motivation and kind of apathy comes from, feeling that there isn't any opportunities out there because everything that you look at, you feel that the bar's just set too high and you can't reach that.
Yeah, no, I think that's quite an interesting point you make there as well. And to the same with yourself, Kirk, where do you see organizations playing a role with organizations like yourselves, and how do you see that playing out?
Can I just say something just before that to Paul? Yeah, Paul, part of my other work after I retired from the job, was around, let's put it this way. I used to visit some really high profile people who were about to be released, infamous people, should we say, about to release. And I used to spend sometimes even years before release visiting them and the like around issues to do with organised crime groups and coming back. And one of the big things is that what I found was a lot of the people that I was dealing with are really intelligent people who's had a lot of time to think in prison, a lot of time to think about what their life might be if they were allowed the opportunity. And so many are not, and purely and simply because, if you're going to have a rehabilitation system, it's got to be exactly that. So outside of this meeting, I would like to talk to you. I did this on behalf of the public authorities, let's say, and yes, a bit of a management program about their lives, but I would love to speak to you outside this.
Look, you're stealing my next question. You're stealing my next question.
Sorry.
I was going to come to that in a second. But for the organizations, the training providers, the employers that are tuning in to this conversation, how do you see a relationship with yourself and them and these organizations working out? Or what sort of work would you want to do with them, particularly considering they're looking for diverse talent, they're looking for working with organizations?
Well, we have a captive audience, if you like, So we have kids through the week on definite days that they come down. And I think one thing that we've learned from this pandemic is how we've been able to engage them even through the screen, and that they always turn up. And we need people to come and talk to them, really, because not all of them want to go to university. Other than want they want vocational training. They want to do something they're truly hands-on, so to speak. But what we find in sport is that people consider sport this other thing, that you play it, it's just about enjoyment and all of that, but it's more than a game. where apprenticeships are concerned is that we started at the club, we started to employ people now, and we're looking at for apprenticeships for our youngsters as well. So we need those people who are involved in either providing apprenticeships to come down and speak to our kids, yeah, to show them that there is another way, not just within school, and some of that post 16 and not waiting necessarily till they're 18 years of age, because that's what happens to a lot of them. And because of some of the challenging lifestyles, I think it might be a better fit for them. So the truth is this: I don't think we actually speak to the children enough about apprenticeships and what actual apprenticeships are. It's a word to them, nothing more than that. And for some of them, it's just a get out clause from staying in, you know, in school, so to speak. But if they could have people who understand what they're talking about, yeah, and want to put the time into them, I am absolutely sure that we would get in most of our kids, kids who would actually take the opportunity, yeah. But it's about getting people in to come and speak to them. We can provide
Yeah,
that.
I was just gonna add to that. Kirk and Paul, how can organisations contact yourselves, or Kirk and Paul, yeah, what can they do? How can they reach out to yourselves to see how they can formulate a conversation with yourself on this?
Yeah, I think in terms of New Leaf, there's a number of ways to contact us. It can either be done directly with myself, through LinkedIn or email. We've got contact forms on the website as well as our contact numbers. I think what I'd like to say is just to encourage any employers who are either apprenticeship providers or considering that to consider getting in touch. We aren't apprenticeship providers ourselves, but what we are doing is we're about to start delivering traineeships, which is if you like, the step before the apprenticeship. So we are going to be looking for employers, specifically those who can provide work experience opportunities to young people between the age of 19 and 24. And what we hope to do is work with those employers who've either got live vacancies or have an apprenticeship programme to see if they'll consider taking on somebody in the form of a traineeship to give them that experience, and also to explore whether those people have the right skills and qualities to then enter their apprenticeship programmes. So we'll have lots more news on this soon, but we'll be launching it shortly and hoping to make some impact in the local region for our young people.
That's fantastic. And Kirk, how can the organisations tuning in reach out to yourself and those at the club?
I suppose, right, like Paula said, we're on all the social media platforms. That's either through myself, Rob Palmer, or indeed the club itself, and again through the website and contact forms there. And that's probably the easiest way of getting hold of us. And what we do, we operate a system where we respond within 24 hours to any sort of contact that is made with us. And it's an open house. I would say that any day from Monday to, it'll be Sunday in a few weeks' time. Monday to Sunday, we are at Nechel's Wellbeing Centre, and there'll be somebody there, one of the coaches. We have 20 odd coaches that are there. And if you were to speak to any one of them, they'd tell you exactly how to get in touch with us. And we would make available as well, if an apprentice company such as your own wanted to come down, we can ensure that on a particular night they miss the actual floor and spend some time listening, and because it's all about their futures.
No, thank you very much, Kirk and Paul. I think it's probably a good time to move to questions and see if there's any questions from the audience. If you do have a question and you want to come on mic and speak on microphone, please do come on microphone and ask your question, or use the chat function to ask your question. But please keep it short and succinct. So we've got here, in fact, a comment from Gary Laybourne, which is about working with the basketball club for a number of years. Can't speak highly enough of them and the work that they do. So that's a comment from Gary Laybourne for Kirk.
What was that? Sorry.
Yeah, there's a comment from
Oh,
Gary
sorry, I didn't
Laybourne.
hear that.
There's a
I can't
comment
hear
from
you.
Gary Laybourne.
About working with us. I agree that the Royal Foundation and the Coach Corps program, it was I mean, we had, I think, about 4 people that went through that system, which is a tremendous system. And I know that Rob has been speaking to somebody with regard to what next year might look like, or the year after, Gary.
And so I think these are one of the things with these organizations is that you get very fruitful partnerships and opportunities, and the more we can hear about, the more examples of these partnerships and how it works, we can actually make it work for a wider circle. I mean, we've got a question for both of you here. What are your top tips for engaging the disengaged? Kirk?
Face to face. Take your time to go and speak to the person. I believe in creating better understandings. That's my mediation negotiation thing. And rather than just take the phone call, having a listen, go out and speak to the person and find out who they actually are. Let them know a little bit about you. And I think all of life really is about creating better understandings. And that is listening to what their needs and the like, but also the encouragement that says that you've got to put a bit of work in yourself, and the challenge will be for us both. And I always come across, and certainly the coaches and the like, we set that as a challenge. You know, it belongs to both of us, not just to us to find a job or within the club or in sport somewhere. We've got to work at this together. There you go.
Of course. Paul, I'm going to make that your last question from Evie regarding engaging the disengaged.
I think sort of echoing what Kirk said, I think that face-to-face engagement we always find better. In terms of the work that we do, we always, where possible, try to do that sort of early intervention work. So although COVID doesn't allow it at the moment, historically we've always started with interventions with people whilst they're actually in prison. So we previously went in to deliver qualifications, and we offered a therapeutic work project called Goodwood, where prisoners were able to make products using waste wood, pallet wood, to create their own designs. But alongside that, they were able to obtain qualifications. So I think that definitely plays a big part. And I think most importantly, it's that sort of personal approach. Nobody wants to feel like they're going through a tick box exercise, or that an organisation is using a one size fits all approach. We know from our own client base that individual needs are just that, they're very individual. Everybody that comes through our door, we know that not everybody is ready to make that transition into work. Some people have a much longer journey to make. We've got lots of other ways that we can support them before we're even ready to look at that. And I think it's about remembering why we do what we do. We're not here to force everybody into employment that they're not going to be able to sustain. What we want to do is make sure that we can help as many people as possible to make that transition who are ready. And for those who aren't ready, we'll look at other ways that we can work with them.
No, I think it's a very interesting point. Just to add on to Vicky's question, yes, I'll with Paul and Kirk's permission, share the contact details for them in the email that's following this forum.
Absolutely.
But I think it's probably a good time to end the Q&A and this session. I want to thank Kirk and Paul, and to yesterday's speakers, Chris, Louise, and Sabrina. I also want to take this opportunity to thank everybody who attended this forum, because without you guys, this forum would not be possible. And I want to thank our sponsors and partners, the City and Guilds Foundation, the Mountain Education, and the Social Mobility Commission. All recordings from this session and the previous one will be up on the website soon. feedback form will be sent out to you, but also, more importantly, please do continue this conversation outside of this forum in particular, because there are people who will benefit massively from this when you, as organizations, reach out to them. Lastly, the next forum and the last virtual forum for now will take place on Monday, the 5th of July, or at 11 o'clock till 12:30. And it's just one session, it's 90 minutes, and it's all about how technology can advance the progress of addressing diversity and social mobility. One final thing, please do connect with Kirk and Paul through social medias or LinkedIn's or whatnot. And please, once again, continue this conversation outside of this 1 hour forum. Until then, hope you have a fantastic day, and I hope you have a good week ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.